If you bring members or some of your colleagues up to the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, do they see what the pipeline looks like? Do they see what areas what you want to open for more drilling?
When you go into the 1002 area, that piece of ANWR at the top of Alaska in that north slope, the 1002 area that has been set aside, you will not see pipeline. There is no pipeline. There is nothing in that 1002 area of ANWR. There is the community of Kaktovik, and that community has its own airstrip, and they've got a school, and they've got a community hall, and they've got a little restaurant. It's not really a restaurant. It's a little lodging. But that's what is in that area existing. There is one stub of an exploration well that was made back in the early '80s, and that's it. And that's covered. It looks like a small little skinny box that's sitting there. Otherwise, it is nothing but flat tundra. So green and marshy in the summer, and white and perfectly flat in the wintertime. That's the 1002 area. Now, outside of those boundaries, on state lands, that's where you will see the development that has come about through Prudhoe Bay exploration and the ongoing discoveries since that. And Prudhoe's about, let's just say, 80 miles to the west then of where you would be in the 1002 area. So when I take members up who want to see ANWR, we'll fly up to Dead Horse / Prudhoe Bay, which is the original field, so built 40 plus years ago. In fact, I actually worked up in Prudhoe Bay when I was just out of high school. Excuse me. Yes, I was just out of high school. I was in college, and worked as they were constructing the pipeline at that point in time. So I spent a full summer up there. It was an extraordinary experience. But you see that development. That's what people would call, the elephant find. That was what changed the state of Alaska in terms of revenues to the state. And then you have what would be described as more satellite fields that spoke out in state areas, again further to the west of the ANWR area. And what we are seeing now with the level of exploration and the finds that they're seeing between the satellite areas on the state lands and the opportunities within the NPRA, the National Petroleum Reserve, which again is further to the west of the 1002. That's where you're seeing some pretty strong development right now.
What do you say to people who are concerned about the environment and think that oil drilling would be, or gas drilling would be, a wrong thing to do?
I invite them to come up because I think it's important that they see. It takes me back to my earlier comments about you need to see Alaska to believe it and to understand it. And what you see when you come into Prudhoe Bay, into the Dead Horse area, is a mature, developed oil field that was developed using the technologies from 45 years ago. It is a much bigger footprint. You then go out to, say for instance, the Alpine field, or what Conoco is doing out at CD5. You look at the footprint and how we have reduced the footprint so many times over. People can't even believe that. Is this all you're talking about? Is this all you're working off of? This small gravel pad is hosting this level of exploration activity. And the reason they're able to do it is because the changes in the technology that have come about in the past 4 decades plus. So one well that can dive down and spoke out in an area up to 8 miles in radius now. That's what our technology is delivering to us. So you don't see it on the surface. The caribou don't see it on the surface. The people who may live in the region can't see it on the surface. This is what we're trying to do. We don't want to come in and take the land just to take the land. That's not part of anybody's plan. We want to be able to access a resource that is below the surface, do so in a way that is efficient, is clean, is environmentally sound, allows for the continued subsistence activity of the native people who live in the region. There's not a lot of communities, there's not a lot of people, but we want to make sure that the native people, the Inupiaq who've lived there for thousands of years, are able to continue harvesting their caribou, are able to continue harvesting the whale that come through on an annual basis, that sustain them throughout the winter. So there is a balance that goes on in Alaska that I'm proud to talk about, because we've made sure that the balance is there for the people first who live there, who need not only the jobs, the resource, but the economy that comes with it. The reality that we have is that in the North Slope borough, you have a school system that is able to hire some pretty good teachers. You have health care that is available for the people who live in this region, that is to be admired. You can afford your utility costs in Barrow. Barrow is powered by natural gas. Nuiqsut is powered by natural gas that comes from the oil fields. You compare that to some of the communities that are still 100% reliant on diesel fuel to stay warm. So what development has brought to the people in the region, it has brought about change, and I know that there's resistance. There's always some resistance to change, but when it also brings the benefit of jobs and resources and the ability to live in a cold, dark place, to be able to be warm, to make sure that your kids are educated, to make sure that you've got the opportunity for health care. These are some of the benefits and the advantages that having development in the region bring. But the people still demand, and I still demand as their representative, that their ability to access the resources on the land for their subsistence, for their food nutrition, but also it's part of their identity. The people of the Inupiaq, they're the people of the whale. The Gwich'in are the people of the caribou. They identify with their food source by name. We can't take that away from them. So we're no longer doing active exploration in the offshore as Shell was doing some years ago. But when Shell was out there, they had stipulations and agreements and memorandums of understanding that required that when the bowhead whale were migrating through, you're out of the water. The engines aren't running. You cannot be out there. When I tell that to people in the lower 48 who come from producing places, whether it's North Dakota or California, and tell them that, well, when the whale are coming through, there's no exploration, there's no anything going on. They say, what? You can't possibly do that. And I said, no, that's a condition. That's how you get your social license to operate. You have to work with the people who live there, the indigenous peoples who've been there for 1,000 years. So it's about balance. It's about balance, and it's not easy, but it's very, very important.